Welcome to this evening's Muskogee City Council meeting, September 10th, 2018.
We're going to do the municipal authority first. If that's
And
all right.
we will put that on pause and do the agenda that I didn't load. So, let me borrow this just a second. Nope, you're fine. Muskogee Municipal Authority, September 10, 2018. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Dan Hall. Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
I just want to say, since Derek Reed is not here, I just want to say during our meetings, I saw him Saturday, and he's here with us online. And so I just wanted to bring that up, even though he's not here.
Derek.
Everybody would say hi to Derek. He's
How you doing,
online
Derek?
with us, and he's paying attention to us online.
All right. Item number 1, regular agenda.
Consider approval of MMA minutes of August 13, 2018.
Are there additions or corrections to those minutes? And if not, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Move for approval.
A second.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Any other thoughts or comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 2.
Consider approval of MMA claims for the month ending August 31, 2018.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, members of the authority, Chairman, you'll see the claims for this month. I would want to point out that we have a larger than usual amount in the retained for capital projects line because of the annual increase. And so I did want to point that out. That money is all staying in the capital projects that you guys have budgeted for, and that is an increased number, and we do recommend approval.
Move
Move
the
for approval.
Got a motion
Second.
and a second. Is there comment or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Excuse me. Yes. And the motion carries. That concludes the agenda for the Muskogee Municipal Authority. We will now go to the Muskogee City Council agenda that we previously talked about. The invocation this evening will be by Councilmember Jamie Stout, and then following will be the flag salute.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the blessings that you give up on us each and every day, dear Lord. We want to come to and ask for healing for Councilman Reed and just continue to be with him as he's continuing to get better. Dear Lord, just be with us as we conduct our city's business, and may it to be the best to your knowledge. And we ask this all in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join us for the flag salute. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Dan Hall. Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Okay. Do we need a motion regarding those that are not?
Make a motion to excuse Dan Hall and Derek Reed. Second.
Motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. Minutes, we'll consider minutes from August 27th meeting, regular session. Is there additional corrections to those minutes? Hearing none.
Make a motion to
Entertain
approve.
a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of August 22nd.
And then a
Second.
second. Any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Consent agenda items 1 through 8. Is there anything anyone would like to move to regular agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. Regular agenda item number 9.
Consider approval of ordinance number 4054A, amending Chapter 80, Urban Renewal Authority, Section 80-102, Urban Renewal Authority, requiring council appointment process occur by ward, providing for repeal or severability, and setting an effective date or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker?
Mayor, members of the council, this item comes before you as approved in committee without change. As you may recall, this item was sort of a housekeeping matter. As you know, a couple of years ago, we adopted the Uniform Appointment Ordinance, which allowed each member of the council, including the mayor, to have an appointment on every board and commission. Those with the highest seniority had the first appointments, but nonetheless, each person would be permitted to have one appointment. The challenge came when we had a couple of vacancies come up in the Urban Renewal Authority. The Urban Renewal Authority is a 5-member board versus the typical 9 that we have on many of our boards. And there are provisions in the ordinance that do require each member serve from a particular ward. So there is 1 member from each ward of the city and then 1 at-large person. What happened when we processed the vacancies through, it appeared that we had several council members who were assigned to select members who were not in their ward or who were outside their ward. Several calls from council members asking whether that we had made a mistake or whether there was some issue that needed to be corrected, and so staff determined that maybe what had happened was an unintended consequence. So we've prepared this ordinance for your consideration, and what it will actually do is require each member to appoint someone from their ward. And so as the provision, we'll use Councilors Van and Coleman for examples. Previously under the ordinance, Councilor Van was assigned to select someone in Ward 4, I believe, and Councilor Coleman in Ward 3. So with this, or Ward 2 actually, and so with this change, what will happen is Councilor Van will appoint someone from his own ward in Ward 3, and Councilor Coleman will appoint someone in Ward 4, and Councilor Stout will appoint someone in Ward 2. And that way you're selecting someone who is of your constituency to make a more fair representation of the Urban Renewal Authority. So with that, as I said, this was approved in committee, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but I also recommend approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Vance.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 10.
Consider approval of ordinance number 4055A, amending Chapter 10, Alcoholic Beverages, Article 1 in general, Section 10-2, Occupational Tax Levied, creating additional categories in accordance with the Oklahoma Alcoholic Beverage Control Act, providing for repeal or severability, and declaring an emergency or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker again.
Mayor, members of the council, as you all know, we have an important deadline coming up. October 1st, 2018 is when the provisions of State Question 792 and the rules from Senate Bill 1336 come into effect. Just as a quick reminder, State Question 792 was passed overwhelmingly by the voters in 2016 and provided a number of provisions. Couple of them I'll go through: to allow grocery and convenience stores to sell wine and High Point beer, to allow small brewers and wineries to self-distribute. Previous to that, all distribution had to come through a distribution company. The state question also allows wine to be shipped into the state direct to consumers, allows wine and beer to be sold refrigerated, allows spirit shops to sell non-alcoholic items so long as those items are 20% or less than 20% of their monthly gross sales. And most importantly, for purposes of today, it permits cities to levy an occupational tax for the manufacture, sale, and distribution of alcoholic beverages. This particular provision was included in the State Question 792, amended the Constitution. But additionally, in this last legislative session with regard to Senate Bill 1336, some of the provisions were more clearly stated in statutory laws as passed by the legislature, in particular Title 37A, which is the Oklahoma Alcoholic Beverage Control Act. which restated what the constitutional provision allowed, which permitted cities to charge an occupational tax for the privilege, their words, of conducting business within our community. So what we've done is go through our existing ordinance. We have always maintained an occupational tax for the sale of alcoholic beverages, but what is proposed today and the hard copy of the red line amendment, it's not actually red, but the strike-through provisions of the amendment I did pass out to you on your desk there. What would happen is within section 10.2, we have incorporated all of the definitions that were contained within state law relating to alcoholic beverages, and those were what was contained in Senate Bill 1336. As codified in 37A, Section 4-104. Additionally, it does impose an occupational tax as specified within Schedule A. So the specific amount of those occupational taxes will be discussed in our next item. What this ordinance does is modify the existing code to provide authority for establishing those taxes under the new provisions of the law, and also to incorporate the definitions within that were passed within state law. Now, as time progresses, we will be bringing additional ordinances related to the sale of alcoholic beverages before you. Those will modify some of the provisions that will be changing as of October 1, and also some of the housekeeping things, such as repealing the provisions of Article 2 within section or Chapter 10 related to regulation of low point beer. As you know, or may be aware, the cities did solely with the county regulate the sale of low point beer. Once the constitutional provision was passed by the voters and Senate Bill 1332 was passed, there will be no low point beer within the state of Oklahoma after October 1. And so those provisions will be stricken out, and that's why I say that's a housekeeping matter. They lose by operation of law under state law any effect after October 1, and so we'll be bringing those things as well as a few other housekeeping things to clean up our ordinance as time passes. However, the reason why this is important to do now is we need to have these provisions in effect by October 1 so that we don't cause the delay of any of our businesses who want to license to sell strong beer and wine or cold beer and wine. Now, you may remember a few months ago we did pass a resolution allowing for an interim certificate of occupation, for certificate of occupancy. And what that would do is allow staff to review the zoning propensities of a particular business to notify in advance whether the state was going to grant a license. And that has gone very successfully. So anyone who is ready to be licensed and has submitted their applications has been approved with regard to that. And that's allowed them to buy the strong beer and wine and have it on hand in anticipation of the October 1st deadline. So now comes the opportunity for us to pass the occupational tax. And what we intend on doing is, if you all pass this and also declare the emergency, the court clerk's office will be ready to process all these applications and be able to grant them, but they will not be effective until October 1st. So we hope to cause no delays in businesses being able to sell in accordance with state law by October 1. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I do recommend approval. And as I said, the particular amounts of the occupational tax we'll discuss in the second item.
Move for approval.
Second.
Get a motion and a second. There a question or comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, maybe excuse me, maybe I'll be recognized.
Sure can.
Yes, Mr. Tucker. On this selling this wine and beer, what's the time frame? Like I want to go to Walmart. What time frame do I have to? I can buy it any time?
The rules, that is not on the agenda today to regulate, and that's one of the things that we will be bringing up. But state law is till 2 a.m., and I think it's as early as 8. I'll have to double check. I didn't bring that provision with me. But we do have some authority to establish those dates, but that is not, by passing this ordinance, that will not establish that right now. That's why I'm saying we'll bring in another ordinance to correct all those times.
Okay. Reason I said, well, myself personally, I know it's a state law, and we have to deal with it, and we're gonna make sale taxes on it. But with my conscience, alcohol, it does kill people. Beer, wine, whatever, it kills people. They drink too much of it at night, daytime. It takes lives, and I just never been for it. And you know what I'm gonna vote, and the way I'm gonna vote. Everyone up here know that. Even Councilman Reed who watch me on TV right now, he know how I'm gonna vote. Because like I say, when you grow up in that kind of environment, you know what it does to people. And I hate to see my children. I don't want my children to even touch the stuff. I'm not saying it's against anybody's rules or laws or whatever, but still, alcohol to me is just, it's no good. It just affects people's lives in a bad way. So I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Are there other comments?
Mayor, one thing I want to correct. I did say that the applications be processed by the court clerk. I, in fact, meant city clerk. So, sorry about that.
All right. Other comments or questions? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Jenny Boydston,
Yes.
Patrick Kale,
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
No.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. We'll now need to act on the declarance of an emergency.
Motion to declare an emergency.
Second.
Motion and second. Any comment on the emergency? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Jenny Boydston,
Yes.
Patrick Kale,
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
No.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 11.
Consider approval of resolution number 2738, adopting amendment to Appendix A of the Muskogee City Code pertaining to schedule of fees and charges per attached list, occupational tax relating to alcoholic beverages, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker, you're the winner tonight. This is
Apparently,
number 3.
yes. Mayor, members of the council, as I alluded to earlier, this is the resolution that would establish the occupational tax as it relates to the sale of alcoholic beverages. I passed out to you a red line copy of the fees, as well as a comparison of the occupational tax of Muskogee, Oklahoma City, and Norman. Those were the two ordinances that were readily available. Some of the challenges is most of these ordinances are so new that they're not able to be located in Muni Code, which is what our provision is. So that's why I have only 2 here. Most of them have not been approved or have been approved and are not codified anywhere, so you can't have access to them unless you contact them individually. And so one of the provisions in the occupancy tax is that we not be permitted to charge more than the state charges for such a tax. And so the proposed fees that are before you here are those which are to the same amount that was charged by the state of Oklahoma. Now, if you look at Oklahoma City versus Norman on some of the other taxes, you can tell that their fees are in some cases lower, or they don't charge a fee at all because the particular instance they don't regulate. For example, on hotel beverages, neither Oklahoma City or Norman have a license fee for that because they don't license it. They just consider it the same as a mixed beverage. However, it is a separate category with the state of Oklahoma, so we've amended ours to be as close as possible. That way, if there are any questions, we can, of course, rely on interpretations of state law in those concerns. And so some of the changes are new. We can go through these individually. With the special events, the proposed cost is $5 more. With the annual public events and bonded warehouse, those are new fees that were not previously charged. The annual public events basically allow someone to get a permit to do 6 events in 3 days each. So it would be for someone who could may want to have something like Bonanza a few times a year or some of those kind of things. The sale of beer and wine on premises, those have each gone up, proposed to go up $25 from what was existing in our existing ordinance. The brewer tax is the same. Brew pub and bottle club, we did not previously regulate or have licenses for. We have included that in there. The caterer's license goes up $25, as does the renewal fee. The mixed beverage license, the caterer mixed beverage combination is proposed at $1,525, which is what $1,525, which is what the state allowed, compared with Oklahoma City and Norman at only $1,250. The distillery fee, if there's not a underline or a strike through, that means the fee was already within our code. We already talked about the hotel beverage. The mixed beverage fee, of course, is a significant increase from the 1,005 that was historically there. And then the mixed beverage for a service or fraternal organization, $500. That's been across the board with Oklahoma City and Norman. There is a new fee for Oklahoma winemakers and Oklahoma brewers. You can see those fees are relatively low with regard to what the state's charged, as well as Oklahoma City and Norman is actually much cheaper at $50. And those are, of course, to entice brewers within Oklahoma to make wine and brew beer. Public events, one-time public event we previously didn't charge, but that's been included at $255. Retail liquor store, that's gone up about $150 as proposed. Retail beer and retail wine, $750 and $1,250 respectively. You may remember that previously package stores such as convenience stores, we did have a fee of $10 to $20 on those. So in looking at that, that may be a significant increase, but you have to remember those previous $10 and $20 fees were simply for the city's time to process the license, because that was something we regulated. It was not an occupancy tax, which is what this is. So that helps explain why the fee has gone up so drastically. But as you can see, Oklahoma City and Norman are both $500 for retail beer and $1,000 for wine. Self-distribution for winemakers and small brewers and brew pubs, we've proposed that at $750. Norman and Oklahoma City don't have a license for that. We've included a fee for small brewer, also storage, and then the provision for winemaker and wholesale wine and spirits. We are not proposing a change on that. The state has allowed that $3,500 wholesale wine to max out at $6,000. However, I don't believe, in accordance with conversations with the clerk's office, we've ever had anybody who's applied for that. So we thought $3,500 was a good number to stay at. So, and as you can see in the proposed revision to Schedule A, we did strike out the $10 and $20 provisions for Low Point beer because, as I said, after October 1, those will not be able to be sold in the state of Oklahoma. So happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Tucker, what's the definition of a small brewer?
A small brewer, it has to do with the amount of brewing that the beer that's made. I believe it's 25,000 gallons.
Okay,
Don't
so
have
that
with
wouldn't
me, but-
impact your guy that's wanting to make
Home brew?
5-gallon
No.
home brew. Okay,
No.
that's just what I wanted to double check on.
My question, Mr. Tucker, and to the other members of the council is, why are the fees so much higher than they are in Norman? Because in my mind, I can't imagine why a small city like Muskogee would have the same fees that are equal to Oklahoma City or equal to the state of Oklahoma unless we had already been previously charging that amount. And the reason I'm concerned about it is because, as far as I know, a lot of our businesses that do sell alcohol, the liquor store or whatever, they're small businesses to some extent. So in my mind, when I look at these fees, the only person that would benefit from having to pay this type of fee is a big business who might absorb a small business, and I don't think that helps a city like Muskogee. So I'm concerned about why the fees are so high.
Well, probably has a lot to do with volume. Oklahoma City and Norman are going to have many more folks who are applying for that. So the tax that city is going to recognize would be probably more than that, even if the amount was lower. But when we brought these forth, we followed what the maximum the state law allowed. If it's the desire to council to reduce those, we're certainly permitted to charge whatever we want, but that seemed like a good go-by to at least begin the discussion. And that's why I wanted to include Oklahoma City and Norman, just so you'd have some comparison to look at if you decided that in certain categories, we did want to reduce the fees.
I mean, it may just be my opinion alone. I just think that maybe we should consider somewhere in between a city like Norman or Oklahoma City, not necessarily max at what the state is doing, considering the city our size. That's just me. How soon do we have to have this passed?
We'd like it as soon as possible, but if for some reason we need to delay it, I would recommend we do a special call so that the businesses who are potentially out of county can have their corporations issue checks, because that's part of the concern is, you're not, in some cases, not talking about a small business who can bring in their checkbook, but rather a corporation who needs to requisition payment, and that's the comments that we've heard. It's like for some of the convenience stores, their main office may not be in Muskogee, and it may be like Quick Trip would be in Tulsa, and so they would need to requisition those checks to pay for that additional fee.
I mean, I'm fine with a special call if we could just pause to have time to review what these fees might be, and then come back next week and have something that we can all.
I would need some guidance, of course, to put how you all want them put together.
I really feel pretty good about most of the fees. I understand that they seem pretty high, but I think most of these companies are going to make their fees back. The only place that I do have some concern about the fees, because I do, Mr. Coleman or Councilman Coleman, I do understand your concern about the impact into businesses. One of the areas that I would like to look at is the area of catering, because that is one that would impact the potential of businesses, and where we would like to see opportunities of businesses to expand into Muskogee. If you look down about 8 steps down, where we have catering at 1,030, then at the renewal of 930, catering of mixed beverages at 1,525. Those do seem actually a little high to me, and that's one to me that would be where we would want to see expanses into our community, and it would hit the small businesses. You may not cater that many events for a small restaurant, and you may not have that advantage of making all that money back to do that type of event. At least that would just be my opinion in that area. On the other ones, they're more retail, what I would say liquor stores or convenience stores, more of a big business where you're turning over a lot of product. But Councilman Coleman, I really do see your point into the small businesses, especially when it's going into the catering, because you could have some small businesses that are just getting into that market, and it could really impact the catering, and those fees did seem pretty high in that area.
Just quickly, Roy, in fairness to staff that put this together, the fees that Mr. Johnson's speaking about, and I'm not going to argue with his concern, but those fees are almost identical to the other two cities that you had any information at all on. Now, that's got nothing to do with trying to look at some of these catering businesses and what might make it economically viable for them. And then to the fees that Mr. Coleman had a concern with, and again, I don't have any problem with it, but there were only 2, maybe 3 of these fees that concerned Mr. Coleman that were kind of out of whack. Everything else on this list is really kind of right on par. So I just want everybody to know that what we're reviewing here, we're not out of whack on every single category.
Well, and with the caterer license, the generic catering license, it's only gone up $25. The real increase is the caterer mixed beverage combination, which has gone up significantly because there wasn't a category there. So that's a big jump. But looking at what Oklahoma City and Norman have charged, they're basically the same. And so, if we want to go with that, that's an easy fix. And if you were thinking of making it less, then it's totally within our discretion to set these fees. We just can't go above, so we can always go lower. And with the and I think Councilor Coleman, I think in addition to those, you were probably thinking of the either the retail package store, which is the liquor store, and the retail beer and wine, which is the grocery and convenience stores. Is that kind of the ones you were looking at too?
Well, what I'm looking at, either 10 of the fees are either new fees or they're higher, or an increase, I should say. And so I'm just thinking that, and I agree with what Councilor Johnson said, especially on those caterers, because those are going to be people that we want to do more business. So what I'd like to be able to do, because I'm not going to just make up numbers tonight. I mean, I'd like to be able to, course of the next week, be able to work with Councilor Johnson and Kale, whoever's that have those concerns, to try to come up with a fee that's maybe a little more palatable for all of us. I don't know, Councilman Johnson or Mr. Kale, if that's acceptable.
Or is that?
Well, I'll be happy to help any way I can, but I guess we need to make a motion to.
You can take no action, and
Okay.
then what we'll do is, if everyone is desirous, we'll put a special call meeting on for the following Monday to adopt the fees.
Okay, and then
Because we wouldn't need an emergency on anything. I mean, with the
Okay.
resolution, the fees are effective immediately upon passage.
Okay.
So
and surely within a short period of time we can all meet and take a look at this before we move forward.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized one more time?
Yes, sir, you
Some-
can.
One more thing my conscience led me to say tonight. If you go on Muskogee Mugs, which I know everybody up here goes on Muskogee Mugs and looks who's been arrested for intoxication, young people, older people, it breaks my heart to see those young people, 18 years old, 20 years old, that's driving while drinking. You know, like I say, alcohol to me is just a disaster. And like I say, you know I'm not making this up. Go when we get out here, get your phone out and get on Muskogee Mugs and see how much money these people have to pay out. And then you know they don't have the money to pay it. So it's all about the money. The beverage people is making money. We're making money as a city off those people's backs. It's got this habit. So I'll just turn the floor back over to you. But I just had to say that, you know, because it's the doggone truth. Turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Had to pay or choose to pay. Yeah.
So do we have to have a motion to take no action, or is that okay with everybody?
just take no action, unless someone wants to make an alternative motion.
If I don't hear a motion, we will move on from item 11 to item 12. No action taken. Item number 12.
Consider approval to accept a grant from the Department of Homeland Security's Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program in the amount of $455,910 for the purchase of a new fire truck or take other necessary action.
Good evening,
Odell.
Mayor, members of the council. We're pretty excited about this. Before I get started, though, I would like to recognize a couple of people that without their assistance, this wouldn't have happened. One of them's here tonight, Rebecca Walkup. She's back there in the back. Julie Moss, also with Muskogee Nonprofit. They were instrumental in getting this grant. Julie's teaching tonight, so she couldn't be here. This grant, I came before council in January of this year and asked for authorization to submit 2 grants to FEMA's Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program for a fire truck and for bunker gear. The 31st, we found out that we got the grant for the fire truck. So it's for $500,000. We have a match of 10%, which is $47,000 and change. I wrote it down somewhere. But there is a grant of 10% on it. So again, we're really excited about it. This is going to allow us to retire one of our old reserve trucks and take one of our frontline trucks and put it in reserve status. So recommend approval and be happy to answer any questions.
How old's the truck you'll be taking out of service? What year is it?
Will be 31 this next year.
Wow.
So we'll be moving a 99 model into reserve status.
So these are highly competitive grants. I just want to point this out. This is not a grant you get for just asking. So Rebecca and Julie and Chief Odell and his staff had to put a lot of time into putting a very good grant together. We had to compete with agencies all across the country, and this is a very significant grant. And I think we just have to pause and acknowledge that that's very good work and very good for the city of Muskogee to be getting this kind of grant. And I'm very proud of you and of Rebecca and our friends at Neighbors Building Neighborhoods.
Rebecca's kind of taking a quiet back seat.
If I could add one more thing, that the second grant for the bunker gear has made it to peer review, and we're got our fingers crossed on that one also. So hopefully we'll get it.
Okay.
I
Move for approval.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second.
And a second. Everybody wants to get on this one, don't they? Any comment or question?
Thank you,
Joyous
Chief.
celebration over $500,000.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Jenny Boydston?
Yes.
Patrick Kale?
Yes.
Marlon Coleman?
Yes.
Wayne Johnson?
Yes.
Ivory Vane?
Yes.
Jamie Stout?
Yes.
Mayor Coburn?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 13.
Consider approval to receive the donation of a trained police canine from the Sand Springs Police Department valued at $10,000 or take other necessary action.
Chief T.
I told Chief Odell I should have got to go first. We also are excited about this. This is a Sand Springs Police Department had decided to do away with their canine unit. And it was something that was sent out. The offers for this canine was sent out to several agencies in the area. So we had a competitive offer, which basically the reason we got selected was because of our exceptional work that our canine officers do and our training that we have. The canine is from the same kennel that we get all of our dogs from. We also have one of our lieutenants in charge of canine that has been there and is a certified trainer. So that helped us to be able to get this 4-year-old canine that we have an estimated value of $10,000. Lieutenant Peters has worked the dog, says it's an exceptional animal, and would be an exceptional addition to our police department. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And you would expect to get 4 or 5 years of service?
Typically,
Potentially?
yes. Usually up to about 10, so we could get up to 6 years out of it.
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Comments further?
Outstanding. If you would have brought the dog, though, it would have probably done just as good.
And apparently, from what we hear, it's very well mannered. It's one of those that's extremely fierce and workable. And then when they get home, it's a big lap dog. So, very, very exceptional canine from what we hear from the owners as well as the department.
Great.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Jenny Boydston?
Yes.
Patrick Kale?
Yes.
Marlon Coleman?
Yes.
Wayne Johnson?
Yes.
Ivory Van?
Yes.
Jamie Stout?
Yes.
Mayor Coburn?
Yes, motion carries. Mr. Ezell, you had signed up to speak to us this evening.
Yes, sir.
Name and address, and you will have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Stephen D. Ezel, 6121 South 6th Street East. I'm here this evening in my capacity as the state chaplain and the state historian for the Sons of the American Legion and the American Legion itself. My purpose here this evening is I am here to remind all of you that at 2:00 p.m. this Wednesday afternoon at Green Hill Cemetery, the American Legion Post number 15 will be holding a special ceremony to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the death of our post's namesake, James F. Smith, at the Battle of St. Mihiel in World War I, which will have actually occurred 100 years ago this Wednesday back in 1918. Now, the public is certainly encouraged to attend. You all are certainly attend. I'm also offering a very special invite to Chief Odell and to Chief Teehee because James A. Smith, Mr. Smith's father, was a 32-year member of the Muskogee Police Department, and James F. Smith was a member of the Muskogee Fire Department for 1 year before answering the country's call to service in World War I. Now, I did some more thorough research. In World War I, there were 38 Muskogee County residents who actually died in World War I. 16 of them, and I have this information right here, were actually from Muskogee proper. 5 of them, we know for a fact, are actually still buried in France. Now, of that basically that's 16. 6 were killed in action. 6 died of wounds that they received in battle, and 4 died of illness and or disease. So I just thought you all should know that this is a ceremony that will be held on the afternoon, and we encourage your attendance and possible participation. I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Let me point out that James Gully, former city council person, deputy mayor, is in the audience tonight. How are you, sir? Item number 14.
Consider an executive session to discuss and take possible action on the following. A, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss the workers' compensation claim of Kristen Ward, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session. B, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss the workers' compensation claim of Terry West, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session.
Entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Make a motion, we go into executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comment? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Jane Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. We'll now consider ourselves in executive session. If you would please excuse us by vacating the chamber.
Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Dan Hall. Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Item 14A and B.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Tucker.
Item 14A, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss the workers' compensation claim of Kristen Ward. After being fully briefed on the status of that case and the negotiations towards settlement that have occurred, I believe an appropriate motion would be to approve settlement of Mr. Ward's claim in the amount of $7,913.50.
So move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Other comment or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Motion carries. B.
Item 14B, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss the workers' compensation claim of Terry West. After being briefed on the status of that case, as well as ongoing settlement negotiations, I believe an appropriate motion would be to approve settlement of the claim of Mr. West in the amount of $8,000.
Motion to
Here,
approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there comment or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries, and that concludes our agenda for today. Thank you for joining us.